Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Intro to State Government Contracting with SBSD, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network in partnership with the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the expected large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We will adjust them during and at the end of the session. We have also enabled a live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Angela Barber, Business Services Manager for the Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. With over 25 years of marketing, strategic planning, and economic development experience, Angela is responsible for business development and outreach for Hampton Roads, the Peninsula, and the Eastern Shore. Prior to her employment with the Commonwealth of Virginia, Angela worked for the City of Chesapeake's Economic Development Department for 17 years. She began her employment with the city in 1999 as marketing research specialist and spent the last 9 years of her tenure as business development manager, focusing on small, women, and minority-owned business development and entrepreneurship. As business services manager for the Virginia SBSD, Angela provides business development resources, counseling services, training, and technical assistance with the state's certification program, SWaM, for small business owners interested in doing business with the Commonwealth of Virginia. She also serves as buyer advocate for state agencies in her service area to help connect small businesses to contracting opportunities. Assisting Angela today is Kathy Deacon, also a business services manager for the Virginia SBSD. Please join me in welcoming Angela and Kathy.
Awesome. Good.
Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila, for that introduction. Thank you always. And thank you for my colleague, Kathy Deacon, being on today as well. So as Sheila mentioned, today we're going to be talking about the intro to the state government contracting. So we're going to cover topics like our EVA bidding platform, as well as the SWaM certification. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that you guys can see the presentation as well. And hopefully with that, Sheila, are you able to see the screen?
You are good.
Awesome.
Thanks, Angela.
Okay, great. So today is about unlocking opportunities. It's the intro to state government contracting with the Commonwealth of Virginia. So before we jump into that, I always like to provide the mission of our agency, which is to provide education and assistance, economic opportunity, and access to capital to generate employment and economic growth for our small businesses. So how do we do that? We have services that we offer to our small business community across the state, providing access to capital. We have our Virginia Small Business Financing Authority. This is our in-house lending division for the Commonwealth. And through the VSBFA, there are several different loan options that are available to help our small businesses grow. Business development and outreach. Now, that is the division that Kathy and I both are members of, along with 3 other members of our division as well. And we cover 5 very specific regions throughout the Commonwealth. We support economic and business development through workshops and training such as this one. Access to resources. We have great resource partners like the SBDC, and we also provide one-on-one business counseling sessions to help talk through some of those business challenges or to connect businesses to resources as they need it. We're going to be talking about the certification as part of today's presentation. But the certification is for our small, our micro, our women and minority-owned business. We also have other designations such as our service disabled veteran and military, as well as our DBE program. And then we also have our sourcing and compliance division. This division specifically works with our state agencies to make sure that they receive sourcing support of SWaM participation. So in other words, making sure that our state agencies and buyers are purchasing from SWaM vendors. So for opportunities, for a company to have the best opportunity to bid on and potentially secure a contract with the Commonwealth of Virginia, our colleges and universities, as well as our many local government agencies that recognize our certification, small business owners must complete 2 key steps. So step 1 is registering an EVA, or Electronic Virginia. This is Virginia's online electronic procurement system. So what is EVA? EVA is Virginia's e-procurement portal. Now, this is the tool that's used by the Commonwealth for all of our purchasing activities. And this is how small businesses have an opportunity to access those opportunities. Through EVA, it can be used to announce bidding opportunities, to get quotes, and to place orders for goods and services. And what you have access to in EVA is those 245 plus agencies, our state agencies, our colleges and universities. We have over 770 local government and counties that actually post or use EVA to solicit opportunities as well. And we also have over 13,000 EVA users, and those are the ones that are logging in, running reports. It's our buyers, all of our EVA users. So through EVA, small purchases can be made. And so it's also important to understand the purchasing rules for the Commonwealth of Virginia. So for purchases under $10,000, the method is a single quote. All we need is a single quote. And the award priority would be to a business that has the micro certification. So for all of our purchases under $10,000, the first priority to award would be to a business that has the micro designation. For purchases over $10,000 and up to $100,000, the method to bid is a competitive bid, okay? A competitive bid. And the award priority would be for businesses who first have the small certification. For large purchases or purchases over $100,000, the method is an invitation for bid, or an IFB. This is competitive sealed bidding that has specific terms with very detailed specification, and it's awarded based on the price, so the lowest bid. Also, the other method for bidding for purchases over $100,000 would be an RFP, or request for a proposal. This is competitive negotiation where the vendor proposes a solution, or they're going to tell us why they're the best for the job or how they're going to implement what we're asking for. We need to have 2 or more offers that are going to be selected for the negotiation, and the award is made to the best overall proposal. So not the lowest bid here, it's the best overall proposal. So what do you need to do to register an EVA? Well, you need your federal EIN number or your tax ID number. You will also be required to upload what is called the Virginia Substitute W-9 form. This link is found on the EVA supplier registration page, but it also requires an original signature. So while you can complete the form online, you do have to print it and actually sign it and then scan it and upload it back into your EVA profile. And then you will also need what are called commodity codes, or NIGP codes, which simply stands for National Institute of Governmental Purchases. NIGP codes represent goods and services always start with the number 9. And you can have as many codes as necessary to describe the goods and the services that you offer. So what you see here is just a screenshot of EVA's homepage, and I have a couple of things that are highlighted here. This is where you can go to learn about EVA. You can also access any tools and resources. There's also how-to guides on how to run certain reports. There's also supplier training. And you can also learn about Virginia purchasing rules. So in order to register, you would simply want to click on register now, and it would take you to the registration page so you can register as a supplier. But I also encourage you to click on the link for I Sell to Virginia. This is going to be great information on learning about the Virginia purchasing rules. And EVA is a public site. So while you do create your account and you can log in to access your notifications, anyone can simply come out to EVA, eva.virginia.gov, and use any of the tools without logging in. This is a public access page. This is just another screenshot of EVA. And this is how you access the lookup tool to search for your NIGP codes. If you come to EVA's homepage and hover over the Resources tab, you will see the prompt for the NIGP code lookup. Simply click on the NIGP code lookup, and it will bring you to a search page. What you want to do is here in the search description, type in the keywords or descriptive words to describe the services that you provide. Commodity codes describe your products and services. They tell EVA buyers what you sell, and they can help match you with bid opportunities. So if I'm a buyer and I create a solicitation and I'm posting it in EVA, and you have a profile in EVA with the same codes as my solicitation, you get matched to the opportunity. And remember, services always start with the number 9. So in the screenshot is to provide an example of a basic search. Okay, so consulting services was the search, and there were different types of codes that come back. One of the things that we do want to make a point here is that when you search for your services or even the products, make sure that you always click on the parent code, because underneath the parent code are other subcategories. And while you could include consulting services, I'm pretty sure you don't consult on everything from A to Z. So you want to make sure that when you search and you have a major classification code, these are hyperlinked. Make sure you click on them to open up the subcategories and scroll through those and choose every single code that best describes the type of services that you provide. Again, you may have more than one NIGP code, okay? EVA also offers training. In addition to the how-to guides that are offered under the supplier training, EVA also offers workshops that are available every Wednesday. They are virtual. We have workshop 1, which is the intro to selling to the Commonwealth, which is the basics. And then we also have workshop 2, which is generating leads. This is a more advanced workshop, and I highly recommend that you take workshop 1 before you take workshop 2. These are live workshops. Again, they are virtual and they are offered every Wednesday. So if you miss an opportunity, you can always come and schedule the next workshop. Also, if you have any technical issues or have any specific questions regarding EVA or your profile within EVA, reach out to EVA's customer care. You can click on the Get Help Customer Care, and it'll bring you to a page with different selections for you to be able to submit your request for assistance. The second step in order to have the best opportunity to bid on contracts with the state of Virginia is to also apply for certification. And we do offer 2. We have our SWaM certification, again, for our small, women, minority-owned, and there are some other designations under the SWaM umbrella. And we also offer the DBE program, our Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program. You must meet the eligibility requirements in order to apply, and you must be a for-profit business. So for the DBE certification, this is a federal program from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And the purpose of DBE is to increase the participation of certified DBEs in federally funded transportation projects. These projects typically include heavy construction, such as building or designing roads, bridges, railroads, ports, and airports. So if anyone is on today that's in the Hampton Roads area, there's been construction on the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel for the past few years. This has not only a SWaM goal, but it also has a DBE goal as well. Currently, our DBE certification has gone through some federal changes. Those updates can be found on our website under sbsd.virginia.gov. Under certification, and the very first tab would be updates. Due to those federal regulations that have changed, there has been some change in the criteria for being able to apply for DBE. And if you have specific questions about the DBE certification or where we are in the process, there's contact information for you to reach out to directly. Excuse me. Now, for our SWaM certification, our Small Women Minority-Owned SWaM certification. This is the Commonwealth of Virginia's Small Business Program, which was created to enhance procurement and contracting opportunities for SWaM businesses participating in state-funded projects. And while it says state-funded with an asterisk, we have a lot of local government that actually utilize our certification as well for their procurement programs. The SWaM certification is race and gender neutral, which simply means that while we can certify a business as woman and or minority, we cannot give priority to, we cannot give preference or set aside contracts based on race and gender. Remember, our priorities to award are for the micro certification as well as the small certification. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the designations under our SWaM umbrella. To be considered a small business in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it's having no more than 250 W-2 employees or no more than 10 million in gross receipts averaged over a 3-year period. So you could be a $50 million company. However, if you have less than 250 W-2 employees, by definition, you will be considered small. For our micro business certification, it's less than 25 W-2 employees and no more than 3 million in annual revenue averaged over the 3-year period. So the difference between the two is not only the number of employees and the revenue, but for small, it's an or factor. And for micro business, you must meet both of the criteria. For our woman-owned businesses, at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women, which means that the daily operations, the management, the investment, the expertise, and the professional license must be held by the 51% owned and controlled part of the business. So as an example, a woman-owned business who is a construction company that is a corporation has applied for SWaM certification, but in her bylaws, it clearly states that the president and the vice president also have to have a vote in order for her to make a decision. So that is an example of one of the things that we look for in control. There are some other factors too, but woman-owned is not just in name, but we do look at these criteria as well as what the control factor is. For minority-owned business, at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more minorities. For our service-disabled veteran, at least 51% of the business must be owned and controlled by one or more service-disabled veterans. Now, the service-disabled veterans they receive their rating from the Department of Veteran Affairs, which is federal. We do not certify based on the percentage of disability, but we do have to verify they are currently service disabled, and there's a step that they have to do through the Virginia Department of Veteran Services. And basically, the state agency verifies that the applicant is currently service disabled. Then we also have our military family-owned designation. This was added last year. at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more members of the uniformed services, a veteran, or a dependent. So when you check the box for the military family-owned designation, we will ask you for specific criteria. We also have our ESOs, our employment service organizations. Now, these organizations provide community-based employment services to individuals with disabilities. These organizations include the Goodwill, the Salvation Army. If you're in Hampton Roads, it could be Eggleston, Portco Services. But before these companies or these organizations can apply for the ESO, they have to go through a process and be approved by CARF, the Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities. These ESO organizations also provide services and goods that are marketable to our state agencies. So we also recognize any of the federal designations that you see here on the slide. Now, we will recognize these designations. However, these are all processed and offered by the SBA, the Small Business Administration. And while we do not certify, but we will recognize these as well for our 8A business, our federally serviced disabled veteran-owned, our woman-owned, and our economically disadvantaged woman-owned small businesses. These are all, again, federal certifications. And within our SWaM application, there is a place for you to check the box. If you check the box, be prepared to upload your approval letter. If you are in the process of applying for any of these designations and you're not yet approved, don't check the box. You can always come back and add them to your SWaM. So I want to talk a little bit about the application process. So SWaM certification is completed online through our certification application portal, and you access the online application through our website under the certification tab. Paper applications are not accepted. So typically the only time we really see a paper is when we are actually assisting with scanning those documents if someone is not able to do that. But all of our certification, all the application process is done completely online. The standard processing time is about 60 business days, which equates to about 3 months, give or take, depending on if there's holidays or days off, those type of things. And not every application requires the same amount of time to process. Every business is different. Okay. So the 60-day or the 60 business day or the 3 month really is from the receipt of a complete application. Once the certification has gone through the process and has been approved, that certification is good for 5 years. And typically, those that are certified will receive a notification about 120 days prior to expiration. So given that it takes about 3 months to process an application, that from the time that you receive the first notification, you should be working on the recertification of your application. So some of the documents that we will be asking you for to support the verifying your criteria. So once you've gone through the first part of the application and completed the information about the business, the owners, your registration with SEC, your NIGP codes, we will be asking you for supporting documents. So everyone must provide proof of identification. So your DMV driver's license. If you don't drive, it's a state ID, and they must be current. For proof of citizenship, we're going to ask you for a birth certificate. We might ask you for a passport or permanent residency. If you use a passport, please make sure that it is current, that it's not expired. In some states, for a birth certificate, you may have been issued a birth registration card. That will suffice as well. We're also going to ask you for the documented proof of your contribution to the business, which simply means that if the business is greater than 5 years old, it's a statement indicating the year that you started the business and what you spent or the owner spent out of pocket to start that business. It could be that you paid your legal fees to become registered. You may be paying for rental space. You could have paid for equipment or supplies or insurance. All of those things are examples of what a typical owner would spend out of their pocket to start the business. If the business is less than 5 years old, you should have some receipts to be able to show that. So we're looking at 2 to 3 receipts that you would scan and you would upload into the place provided. We're also going to be looking for your resume, and not just you, but all the owners of the business. Think of it as like going on a job interview. That resume is going to have your previous work experience, as well as your education, any type of certifications that you may have. You also want to make sure that the business or businesses are also included on your resume. We're also going to be asking you for copies of your professional licenses and permits. There are some industries that require a professional license. If you do construction and you're a contractor, you may have A, B, or C. If you do catering or food service, you're going to have a Serve Safe, okay? So depending on the industry, if a professional license or permit is required, there are going to be some industries that do not require you to have a professional license. I would also recommend that if you have a current business license, that you can also upload your current business license as well. We're also going to be asking you for your business tax returns for not only the current year, but also for the previous 2 years. Now, the question comes when for the tax returns. What if I'm a new business? I haven't filed my returns yet. Can I still apply for SWaM? The answer to that is yes. So new businesses that have not yet filed taxes may also apply. So the current year is going to be your current complete federal return. And then the 2 previous years, we don't need the complete return, but we're going to ask you for very specific pages depending on the type of return that you have filed. Now, if you started your business in 2019 and you tell us, I haven't filed taxes in the last 3 years, that might raise a question, and we may need to ask you for an explanation as to why you have not filed current business taxes. We're also going to ask you for a 941 if you have W-2 employees. These are filed quarterly, and they report the number of employees, the wages, the taxes that are taken out, okay? If you do not have W-2 employees, make sure that you enter 0 where we ask you for the number of employees. Now, if you are the only owner of the business, if you are the owner of the business, unless you are a W-2 employee of your company, you technically are not an employee. Make sure that you enter 0. Otherwise, we will ask you for the 941. The other question comes up is when you own a business, but you may not have had employees during all the quarters. So if there was a quarter that you did not have W-2 employees, simply write a statement for that quarter indicating that you did not have employees. And for the quarters where you did file a 941, that is where you would upload the first page. So some of the additional documents that we're going to ask for are also going to be based on how the business is formed or the business entity. So if the business is a corporation, we're going to ask for your certificate of incorporation and your articles of incorporation. When you file with the SEC, the State Corporation Commission, the certificate and the articles are part of your filing. They are public documents, and they can be downloaded by simply going to the SEC website, searching for the business, and clicking on the business ID, and going to the filing history. The certificate and the articles are specific. They both are titled certificate, and one is the articles. You want to make sure that you have a copy of each. The corporate bylaws. The corporate bylaws pretty much spell out how a business is run, who has the voting rights, how many are needed to have a quorum, the number of shares, the corporate bylaws. It is required. We're also going to need the minutes from the most recent stockholder or board meeting. Even if you are a corporation with an owner of 1, if you have to have that meeting by yourself, that's what you do to have and create your board meeting. We're also going to ask you for both sides of your stock certificates. Now, depending on how you registered your business as a corporation, You may or may not have had a stock certificate issued. If you did not have a stock certificate or do not have a stock certificate, it is a statement that simply says no stock certificate was issued. For the stock ledger, it is required. The stock ledger is a historical document that keeps track of the owners, the number of shares, when they became a shareholder in the corporation, and any time the ownership has changed or the number of shares has been reallocated. It is required. As an LLC or a limited liability company, we're going to ask you for your certificate of organization and your articles of organization. Again, these documents are filed with the SEC and are public. We're also going to ask you for your operating agreement. The operating agreement also provides information about how the business is run, who's in control, and what happens when the other is not available. However, the operating agreement is not required if you are a single member LLC. It's a simple statement that says, I am the only owner or the single member owner of the LLC, and I do not have an operating agreement. And that is only if you are the only owner or the single member of the LLC. Additional documents are also going to be required for a sole proprietorship. So if you are a sole proprietor, you could be John Doe doing business as JD's Automotive as a sole proprietor. So we're going to ask you for your current business license. And if you are doing business as or trading under a different name, we're going to also ask you for your certificate of assumed or fictitious name, which should be registered with the SEC. This also applies to your business if you are an LLC or a corporation doing business under a trade name or doing business as. You should also have your certificate of assumed or fictitious name filed with the SEC. Franchises. We can certify franchises because the individual business owners are individual franchise operators. So in addition to your documents on how your company is formed, LLC or corporation, we're also going to ask you for your franchise agreement, whether it's 1 page or 100 pages. It must be uploaded into the system. Sometimes those franchise agreements are very specific about how you can and who you can do business with. And so trust me, our certification officers, they read everything in fine detail. And if you are a partnership, you have a partnership agreement. I want to stress that please make sure that all of your documents are dated and signed. If it's not signed where a signature is required, it is not a valid document. So just wanted to share some information or share some screenshots on how to access the SWaM certification portal. Again, the application portal is accessed through our website, sbsd.virginia.gov, always spell Virginia out. You would simply come to our homepage and a screenshot here. You would hover over certification and choose apply now. And this has actually been updated to say apply/login, because if you log out and you need to get back into the portal, you would simply come to the same place and click on the icon in order to log in as well. Once you click on apply now or log in, it will bring you to the credentials page. If you already have a login, you will use that to log in to access your account. If you are a new user and you're applying for SWaM for the first time, you will need to register as a new user. So you will simply click on the link, new user, register here. It will bring you to the next page where you'll be prompted to create your account. Please follow the prompts to enter the information that is required. Okay, and then we'll also give you some basics about what we're looking for on the password. And you're going to click on submit. Once you click on submit, the system is going to send an email to let you know that an account has been created. And the screenshot here to the left is how that email would look to let you know your account was created, and it will let you know the email that was created under. Once you receive the email, you then want to come back to the login page and simply log in with your new credentials. Once you log in, you will receive a one-time password. This will be sent to your email address. You'll only have to do this part one time. Once this is sent to your email, it should match the first 4 numbers, and you're going to enter the 6 numbers that it's generated, and then you're going to click on submit. Once you've received and verified your one-time password, you will need to set up what we call the multi-factor authentication method. We give you 5 different options to choose for. Choose whichever option works best for you. You will have to do this step. Once you've created your authentication method, it will be required every time you log into the system. It's just another layer of security. Once you have created your multi-factor authentication and you're in the system, the screenshot you see here is what it looks like for someone who is a new user or has not yet created an application. This is now you're in our certification portal, and this is the dashboard. This is the dashboard. This is what it looks like without the application been added. But you're simply going to come to the upper right-hand corner, and you're going to click on link/new application. So this tab helps you to create your new application, but it also can link you to a previous application that's in the system if you have not created a username and a password. So for those that have an application already in the system, but may not have updated their login information, you can link to your previous application with that link as well. Once you are inside of the application, once you have entered your EIN number and you've been prompted to start the application, what you see now is the actual application portal. Each section has a specific tab that you must complete. Each tab has highlighted or asterisk information that is going to be required. Okay, in our first tab here, we're going to ask you for the general information about the business. And all these subsequent tabs, make sure that you click on each tab and complete the information. Once you have completed the first part of the application, again, that is collecting information about you, the owners, the location, your NIGP codes, all of that information. The second piece is where you will be uploading those supporting documents that we talked about earlier. So my recommendation would be to complete the first part of the application. When you get to the document upload side, take a good look at what we're asking for. If you have a question about what we're asking for or not quite sure about the documents, feel free to reach out to our customer service team or to your business service manager, and we can actually provide some guidance on the documents that we're asking for. Once you have submitted your application, you can come back and check your application. There's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can come to Quick Links under our homepage. You can hover over the certification application status, and you can search by company name or by your certification number, and it gives some basic information, okay? One other way to be able to check the status is to simply log into your application, click the application to open it, and you will see your timeline. On the left-hand side is the timeline. It shows you when you submitted the application, and on the right side is your processing window. And that is pretty much the best way to check the status of your application. Our buyers that are working with our vendors and are looking for SWaM to see if the SWaM certification has been processed, they're the ones that pretty much use the certification link here. But the best way for you as a vendor to check your status is to actually log back in and check your application. So some of the advantages to being SWaM certified. Again, as I talked about earlier, the priority of awards are for micro and small certification. We also have opportunities that are based on the lowest bid, such as in a quick quote or an IFB, an invitation for bid. Both are won by the lowest bid. And then we also have prime contractors that also have or submit what they call a small business utilization plan. So when we have a prime contractor that's bidding on a state contract and they are using subs, they also have to submit what is called their utilization or their SWaM plan, indicating the businesses that they intend to use as subcontractors. So some things to consider. SWaM certification provides the opportunity to do business with the state of Virginia, our public colleges and universities, and a lot of our local governments, but it does not guarantee a contract. EVA, which is Virginia's online procurement portal, this is the tool to access those state contracting opportunities, and as well as those localities that utilize the platform. But you must be registered as a vendor to bid on those contract opportunities. Please make sure that your NIGP codes are the same, whether you do SWaM first or you do EVA first, but your NIGP code should be the same for both your SWaM application as well as your EVA profile. And remember, you may have multiple codes. You do not have to be SWaM certified to register in EVA. For SWaM certification assistance, we offer it a few different ways. Our customer service team is in Richmond. If you call the number on the screen, they are able to answer basic questions. But if you need technical assistance, they're going to ask you what city you're in, and they're going to connect you with myself if you're in Hampton Roads, with Kathy Deacon if you're out in Southwest Virginia, or with Randy, Ramin, or Chris if you're in their areas as well. The best way to reach us is email. Also, additional information for other contacts for our VSBFA, our lending division for this particular region would be Karen White and Terrence Rogers. For our DBE certification or our DBE transportation manager in the Hampton Roads area would be Miss Nina Britton. And of course, I'm Angela Barber. I cover the Eastern region, which is everything from the Eastern Shore up to Williamsburg. But additional contact information may also be found on our website. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. And I am going to now turn on my camera.
Thank you, Angela.
I'm pretty sure there's probably some Q&A.
Kathy has been typing away.
Great.
Kathy has handled a lot of them. There is one that just came up. Do you want me to read it out loud to you and one of you all can answer? I have a company registered with the state already, but I tend to do the most business under a sub company. How do I handle this? Do I fill out documents under the registered name, change the registered name of the business to the sub name, or how would they handle that?
So you're a business, that means that you have a primary company or primary business and you're registered as under a DBA or a fictitious name. That has to stay in place under SWaM, because we look at what your legal business name is. So as long as the legal business name is visible under your SWaM and you have entered your trade name or doing business as, you will be listed with both names under your SWaM, under the SWaM directory. But for EVA, you also want to make sure that your primary business name, as well as your DBA, is also on your SWaM profile as well. So both are recognized.
Okay, great. Another question was, can your small business be headquartered in another state and do business with EVA?
Good question. So you can be headquartered in another state and do business with the state of Virginia. However, when it comes down to SWaM certification, if your business is headquartered outside of the state of Virginia, we can certify you, but two things have to occur. Well, maybe three things. So the first thing is we have to have reciprocity with that state. That simply means that that state where your business is headquartered has to allow Virginia businesses to certify in their programs. If they do, then we have what is called reciprocity. If the business, for instance, is headquartered in North Carolina, just as an example, we have reciprocity with North Carolina, but because your business is headquartered there, you have to be certified by North Carolina first before applying for SWaM in Virginia. And you also have to be registered as a foreign entity to be able to conduct business in the state, regardless of the SWaM. But yes, you may do business with the state of Virginia if you're outside of Virginia, but for the SWaM purposes, you do have to meet the reciprocity requirement.
Another question was, for the SWaM certification, do you need to do a percentage of the work under your actual business?
That depends on the details in the actual solicitation. If you are bidding on that contract as the prime, you can sub it out. And sometimes there are requirements for what the subs would be. So you have to actually read the solicitation that is posted. There are businesses that self-perform. So if you are the SWaM and you can perform everything that is under that solicitation, you can self-perform as the SWaM. So I would say read the details to find out what that is.
Okay, I think this person went on to say instead of through sub, and I was reading something else, so I wasn't paying attention to your answer. I apologize. So I don't know if you need to describe it further or not.
What through a sub? So are they
instead of through sub? I think it was in addition to that question, but if you handled it, then I
okay, yeah. So in order to do the work, you have to bid on the contract. If you're looking to be a sub, then that means that you would be subbing under someone who has won the contract. So as a sub, you would not be bidding as a sub. Okay. You would be looking to be a sub under a prime contractor.
Okay, so they went on to say, this attendee, so this is different from federal government regs, correct?
Yes,
there you need to actually do the business instead of having subs do it.
Well, yeah, you can have subs, you can actually do subs, you can have subs do the business as well. So for instance, you are a construction company, you're a prime contractor, and you have bid on a contract with the state. Well, you would have to be the prime. You could submit what is considered your SWaM plan or your utilization plan to indicate the subs that you intend to use under that as the prime. So you can be a prime and use subs, and you could also be a sub under a prime. So there are opportunities there on both sides.
Great. Let's see. This one, I do have an education business Spanish classes. Before applying to EVA, does my business have opportunities to do business with the government?
Okay. Let's see. What
the one that came in at 1247. So it starts with, I do have an education business Spanish classes. Okay. Do you see it?
Okay, before applying to EVA, does my business have opportunities to do business with the government? In order to bid on opportunities, you would have to bid through EVA. However, also, for purchases under $10,000, we actually have the ability to, remember, quick quotes, under $10,000, we can make purchases directly with the business. We just have to get a single quote. So if you are SWaM certified and we know that that is a service that's going to be under 10, we can actually go out to our SWaM directory. We can search for a business that provides those services, and we can get quotes and do business directly without it going through EVA. To bid.
If I have submitted a bid that is set aside for small business and I'm not certified yet, will I lose my bid?
So if it requires you to be SWaM certified and you are not, so no. Yes and no. So if you bid on a solicitation and it requires you to be certified, and say you've submitted your application and it's pending, the buyer, if they want to award the contract to you, they can email our agency to ask for assistance with actually facilitating your application being expedited. We can only do that if the buyer is awarding the contract. That is the only time that we can expedite, because we don't want a business to lose an opportunity. So if the buyer wants to award the contract to you and your SWaM is pending, they know how to reach out to us to request that that application is expedited. And if we go through the process to expedite and everything is good with that application, they will approve it. If there's additional documents needed, they will ask you for that before completing that process.
We have another question. I registered my future business several years ago with SCC while still employed with an employer. It was not fully developed. I didn't start the business until this year after a layoff. Is the active date when I first registered it or when I actually started doing business in 2026?
Good question. It's when you registered the business. And so remember when I made the comment about the tax returns? And so that does happen. We've had businesses that may have gone to the SEC and registered their business years ago, but they just never did anything with it, or life happened or COVID happened, and they did not do anything with the business to generate revenue and file a tax return. But the date is when you registered the business. In the case of a business is becoming going from sole proprietorship, and then they register with the SEC, it's the date that you actually formed the business. Okay. And the date that you became registered with the SEC, that's a different date, but it's the date that the business was actually formed and registered.
Let's see. Where do we add NIGP codes to our EVA profile?
So if you need to add them, once you log into EVA, on the left-hand side, because I don't usually go in that way, but on the left-hand side, you want to choose company profile. And then there are little icons on the left-hand side. Hover over qualifications. Once you click on qualifications, it will then open up into the tab and you will see a section that says commodity codes. And once you get to there, you can either delete or you can add additional codes there. You can do that in EVA, and it usually updates fairly quickly. However, on the SWaM side, if you need to update your your NIGP codes, there is a process. You can either log in to do that, and if you hit edit and you can make the change and submit, it may take some time, but we also have something called a SWaM notice of change, which can be found under quick links, under important forms, and you can submit your updates for your NIGP code. So if you update one, make sure you update the other side as well.
Thank you for the session. What is the best way to secure our first contract with the state? Should I start as a subcontractor or target smaller contracts directly?
A combination of both. It depends on your ability, your capacity, your capability, your resources to be able to fulfill the need. So for some small businesses that are starting out, being a subcontractor is the way to go because that helps them to build capacity and a work detail and work history. But if your business has the resources and the capacity and capability to be able to actually bid on a small, what we call the low-hanging fruit, I highly recommend that you do that as well. So it could be a combination of both.
Let's see. What insurance does a business need to have for applying for SWaM certification?
We do not require that you have insurance to apply for SWaM. However, if you bid on a solicitation, that solicitation may require you to have insurance. But the insurance is not required for SWaM, but it may be required in order for you to fulfill a contract.
Are there contracts specifically for sole proprietors?
No, it's not. It's based off of small, and small could be a sole proprietor or an LLC. A small could also be a corporation, because remember that small is based on the number of employees and the revenue. It is not based on how the business is structured.
So there was another, Scott said, and I'm not sure which question it was referring to or which answer, but only a percentage, the business needs to do more than 50%, if I understand correctly. Do you understand what he's referring to?
So I understand what he's asking. I'm not a procurement specialist. So it depends on what the terms of the solicitation are in that. And I don't know if Kathy Deacon can elaborate, but I'm not a procurement specialist. So, whether or not they have to do 50% or more of the work, I will use this as an example. Here, SB Ballard is one of our construction companies. SB Ballard subs out everything. Okay, so that gives you an example. But SB Ballard also holds the contractor's license. So as a prime, they are the prime, but they can sub all of that out. But it also depends on what is required in the solicitation. And they may say 50% for construction, Okay, so it depends on that. Now I know that for in 2019, the construction sub amount was 50%, but there also usually is a breakdown also as well. 10% woman owned, 7% minority, those type of things. So you have to look at what the requirements are. But for construction, it is 50%.
And I was, Kathy, do you have anything to add to that? I know you're still
Well,
there somewhere. Um, okay, so we have 4 minutes. I'm going to put out a last call. Oh, I think we just got a question. I
okay.
am woman-owned, single employee, and minority-owned. Which is best for me to register as? Small, micro, women-owned, under 10,000.
All of them.
All
So
of
as
the
long as
above.
you meet the criteria for those certifications, you may have more than one. One of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of times, the people will check, applicants will check small. They might check woman or minority, but they don't check micro. Micro just simply means you have less than 25 employees and you have less than 3 million in revenue. That's like 98% of the businesses that I work with every day. But as long as you meet the criteria for small, micro, and woman, please make sure that you check all the boxes that you meet the criteria for.
All right. Again, we have probably less than 4 minutes now, and I'll put out the last call for questions. And while we're waiting, if Angela or if Kathy wants to come on and give us some last words of wisdom before I wrap us up, I'll take it.
Kathy?
Yeah, so I would just say, if you haven't explored the SWaM certification and the EVA platform and seen what powerful tools both of those things can be, if you sell, for sure, if you offer a good or a service that state governments, colleges, localities, public bodies are buying, and they buy everything. I'm telling you, there's not much that doesn't get bought. I would say make sure you look at the required documents, gather all those up. I think that's the most kind of cumbersome part of this process. If you have all of your required documents gathered up, it literally can take you less than an hour to get your application submitted. So I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to take the EVA training. Go in and look, that is a public facing, completely open portal where you can explore what has been bought in the past, who's bought it, look for services, obviously, or goods that you sell, and take the EVA training Kim Pritchett does an amazing job with that training. She can show you how to navigate the system, how to connect with others who might be looking for subcontractors to help them out on a contract. So EVA, SWaM certification, both really powerful tools if you are looking to sell, to the Commonwealth of Virginia, colleges and universities, local governments, and public bodies.
Thank you.
Ditto.
Kathy made it really easy for you. Oh wait, we did have another question pop in, so this will be our last question.
Okay.
What if you have the last 2 years income tax but haven't filed this past year yet? Will that hold up your application?
No, you can still submit because there are still people that are submitting their 2025. So if you don't have that right now, you can submit 2024, 2023, 2022 if you have 2022. However, past the April 15th date, by the time the application gets into review, they may ask you for your 2025. And if you haven't, they will ask you for your extension. Okay, but don't let that hold you up for submitting the application.
And I lied. I'll take one last question that had popped in. Are we able to view dollar amounts of awarded contracts?
Yes. In EVA, if you go to the bidding opportunities page, anytime that you see solicitations that have been awarded, particularly state, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Look at the tabs that says awarded. Usually, if it's an RFP, the award letter's in there, typically the amount. If it's a bid, like an IFB or a quick quote, after it's been awarded, go to the bid tab. and that will show you all the bids and typically the award. If that information is not there, you can actually reach out to the buyer. If it's local government, you have to contact the locality itself. Okay. So, but that information is available and it is public information.
Great. Okay, we're going to close it out now. It is 1 o'clock. Angela, Kathy, thank you both so much. So much good information given today. I want to thank everyone who joined us as well. And remind you, you're going to receive an email with a link to both this recording and to the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we hope to see you all at our next session. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.